Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is the next part in the basic canning series, and today we're going to talk about books. I have two books that I use, and the most important one, the most common one, and the least expensive one is this, the Ball Blue Book. Mine's an older version. It's from 1994. I had an older version than that, and I upgraded when this one came out. They put out a new one every couple of years. I would suggest getting the newest one that you can. Most places that sell the canning supplies will also have these because there's always going to be new canners out there. This one gives you some basic recipes, but more importantly, it gives you the timetables for how long to can something, whichever way you're doing it. And mine is well worn, and the pages with the canning charts, which I know you can't see from there, but the pages with the canning charts are very easy to read and understand. And mine are well worn, and they have notes next to them. There's canning time reference for boiling water bath canner, and it goes by what fruit or vegetable that's high acid, and how you pack it, whether you're doing it hot or whether you're doing it raw. Let me put my glasses back on so I can read. That's the two ways to water bath can. Hot jars, hot food, hot liquid in the jar. That's a hot pack. Raw pack, you can put it in a cold jar, and start off with cold water. Okay. It tells you what size, whether they're half pints, 1.5 pints, or quarts. It's rare to find the 1.5 pint jars, although they're a nice size. Most people just do the pints and the quarts, and sometimes half pints for a little, condiment type stuff. This will tell you how long to process it in the water bath once it's come up to boiling. It'll tell you how long to actually do it. And literally, this is all fruits, and the acid vegetables is rhubarb, sauerkraut, tomatoes, and tomato juice. And then there are pickles, because those are either going to have sugar, vinegar, or both. Those would be high acid also. You can look things up a lot of different ways in here. This book actually has the for altitude differences. Most people are going to be 1,000 feet or under that, anywhere from sea level to 1,000 feet, and that's pretty easy to sort out. It will tell you how long to water bath it. For pressure canning, it will tell you how much PSI on the dial or how much pound pressure on a weighted gauge. Depending on your altitude, it will tell you under steam pressure canning what vegetables, whether it's raw or hot pack, and how long to process it for what size jar you're using. You can can soups. You can can pretty much anything. So, after that, it goes into a little extra stuff. This one, acid foods, and gives you, syrups for canning. How much sugar to water to make a syrup, like for fruit if you want to do that. And it gives you recipes, basic directions for each type of fruit, and some recipes. You may or may not want to do it that way. It does show you pictures, at least this one does. I'm assuming the newer ones do. I don't need one, so I didn't buy one. You know me, I'm frugal and on a budget. But the basic stuff is, it's the same. If you can find at least a 1994, 1995 version of this somewhere, go for it. It's still good. It's not out of date. What they do in the newer ones is they'll put in different recipes. This one has a lot of pickle recipes. I'm not a pickle person, so I don't usually make those. I have done some, but not really, not really my thing. If I'm going to do pickles, like sometimes I like dill pickles on chicken salad sandwich or something, and I'll just buy a jar because I just don't go through them. It has how to do jellies and jams, and semi-soft spreads, how to test it, make sure it's ready to go. It gives you different recipes, a lot of them in this particular book. Like I say, I haven't seen the newest version, so I'm not sure what that has. And then it goes through a section of the low acid food, which means pressure canning. And it will tell you kind of step by step how to do the basic, and then it gives you recipes for a lot of different things. Again, from how to chop up your vegetables to the end product. So you get, in this one at least, you get pictures. I'm assuming with the new one you do too. And then it just has a lot of different recipes. This one also goes into dehydrating. I don't know, it might go into, it goes into freezing. You can freeze in your canning jars. I have had some people say that once you freeze in them, don't use them for anything but that. I don't know, you're supposed to be able to use them for whatever you need them for. I've not had any issues. I rarely freeze in a jar. If you have a problem that comes up, they have a section. It's the problem solver. It's like, if the food is dark on top of the jar, what caused it, what prevents it next time. It may or may not be a spoilage issue. A lot of times, if your food soaks up a lot of the liquid in the jar, you may have some vegetable on the top, or fruit on the top that turns dark. It's not pretty. If you open a jar and anything smells bad, you throw it all out. You don't even question it. You just get rid of it. You don't want to take a chance on getting sick. But if it's just, brownish, darker color, doesn't look right. I find that a lot with potatoes. When I can potatoes, after a certain little bit of time, sometimes the water level, the potato soaks it up. I don't know why, but it does. And the little top layer will have dark spots on it. I just take those potatoes out and throw them away because they look ugly. They're not bad to eat. They just look ugly. And move on with what you're doing with your potatoes or whatever it is. But this will tell you what can cause it. If you get cloudiness, it's like jar seals. If the jar seals, but then it pops open, that's a spoilage issue. You throw it out. You don't have to throw the jar out, just everything that's in it, just the food that's in it. There's lots of different questions and answers in here. And the Ball site is pretty good about answering questions as well. If you don't have one of these books or can't find the answer for it, like I said, it's got dehydration things too, so you can dehydrate stuff and store it in jars. And then there's, more recipes for all different kinds of things. These books are not real expensive. I want to say they're maybe $12 to $15. I'm not real positive. But you definitely want to get one of these and check out the Ball website. It's just a good place to start. It's got all the basic information. You're not actually seeing somebody doing it, but they're pretty thorough about it. And definitely, definitely, if you live in a high altitude like I do in Colorado, check out you can go online, put in your zip code, altitude for, and the zip code, and it'll tell you what your altitude is. But you have to add time and a larger weight for high altitudes. Other than that, there's not really a difference. The basic for water bathing for me is I have to add about 15 minutes to mine for my altitude. I'm at 7,700 feet. For pressure canning for up to pints, half pints and pints, I have to add 15 minutes. I also have to use a 15-pound weight rather than a 10-pound weight. Or look at your pressure gauge if you have one with a gauge. That's most of it right there. And I have written my handwritten notes on that stuff. But I always check. This book stays open to these pages with the charts, the time charts. And I just keep it that way because that's pretty much all I use out of this one at this point. And I check it every time. I don't care what I'm canning. I double check it. You don't want to do it wrong. If you don't get enough pressure, your seals are not going to hold. Like I say, for most people, it's not going to be an issue because it's going to be the same thing every time because you're at a lower altitude. Okay, that's book number 1. My second favorite book is this one. Growing and Canning Your Own Food by Jackie Clay. Unfortunately, this one is no longer in print. Now, that being said, there are a very few available literal books on Amazon, and I will put a link in the description box. They're not cheap. When I bought this, it was about $20 to $25. It's a pretty thick book. What's nice about this is it not only tells you about growing your own food, but it talks about the basics of the canning, and it's got nice pictures in it that you can easily see what's going on. Jackie Clay has been doing canning, growing vegetables and stuff, and she gives, basic recipes and how much of this and how long to do it and all of that. I really, really like this book. It's one of the ones that I kept. I had, 4 or 5 other books that talked about canning or recipes for, and I never used them. So I gave them away to somebody else. And that was just recently. It was last year. So I would highly recommend this one. However, since this one is out of print and the ones on Amazon start at just over $50, and I know that's pricey because I wouldn't pay that much. What they now have, Jackie Clay writes for Backwoods Home Magazine, and I'll include links for this. That magazine has been going for over 30 years, and she writes for that magazine, and they have published a number of books. Since this one is out of print, I'm going to assume because it's thick and it's more expensive to do, they have done other books which are smaller, and it's like basic canning, water bath canning, pressure canning, and it'll cover most anything you might want to look at there. I don't know if it includes recipes or not, but I do know that you can get a set of 4 books that covers all the canning. They're having a special right now where you can get all 4 books for I think it was $19 or $20. or you can buy them individually. They're on sale for like $6.95. But if you want all of them, it's a better deal to get the group of them. Backwoods Home Magazine is geared toward the self-sufficient homesteading type people. You may or may not be interested in the homesteading part. It's going to have articles on gardening. It's going to have articles on raising animals, articles on hunting, articles on, building things on your homestead, as well as, recipes for different things. It's an all-around good magazine. It's, in my mind, a little pricey, but if that's your thing, that's great. You can also get anthologies. I'm not quite sure what is in those. You can also get back issues. Those are a little pricey because there's limited number of them. But it's something to look at if you are interested in that homesteading aspect. I've looked at some of their magazines that a friend had. They're very good. They're very thorough. And Jackie Clay is just an absolute wonder. They live on an acreage in the north, off grid. They do everything off grid. And so, she knows how to do darn near everything. And they have actually lived in the Southwest before. So she's dealt with extreme different types of temperatures, as far as, how to live that way. And so I would recommend any and all of her books. And I recommend that magazine if you're into that homesteading kind of thing. I'm an apartment. Obviously, I'm not doing that. I wanted to, but life just didn't play out that way. I probably never would have been an off-grid person. I really like my electricity, and I really like, running water in the bathroom. That's just me. I grew up in the suburbs, and that's never going to leave me. So those are my 2 book recommendations. There are plenty more out there. I had one that was called Stocking Up. It's an older book, I think from the 70s or 80s, and that had a lot of interesting recipes and stuff in it and information. I had one on pickling, and it wasn't just like cucumbers. It was pickling anything. There are multitude of vegetables or fruits that you can pickle. Interesting recipes. I have found that the older the cookbook, the more you will find canning and pickling type recipes. However, if you're like me and you like the vintage and antique cookbooks, and I have a small collection of cookbooks from 1913 and before, I like the recipes because they're using real food. They're not using processed foods. And I do use those, and a great many of them will have canning and pickling, preserving recipes. The recipes are great. Be very, very careful about the actual canning and preserving methods if you're dealing with things that are low acid especially. I'm not saying those were wrong at that time period. It might have been all they had. But you want to be very careful and do things properly. These days, we live in a different environment. We have better methods. And so we want to use the newest and most proper way to do things. It's just safer. Now, there are people who can things in jars that are not FDA approved. Cheese, milk, butter, those dairy items. Some people can fish and seafood. I'm not a fish and seafood eater, so I won't be doing any of that. I'm not comfortable. I might at some point try butter. Basically, what happens is it turns into ghee, which is shelf stable for a certain amount of time, 3 to 5 years, depending on how you do it. But I haven't reached a point where I need to do anything like that. That may become something I have to do in the future. I don't know. I hope not. Um, I think that's about it for this little installment in the basic canning series. And I hope it's been helpful. Like I said, I will leave links below so that you can find the Jackie Clay books, the new ones that are out. And they are on sale for right now, probably through Christmas. And a link to this one if you're definitely interested in this, because there's a lot of interesting recipes in it. Jackie is what we call a rebel canner, in that she does can stuff that is not FDA approved. A lot of people do that and don't have a problem because they know what they're doing. They're very careful. And those kind of things, especially like milk and all the dairy stuff, shorter shelf life. I've got jars in the pantry that are 12 to 15 years old food, and they're perfectly fine. Yes, they do lose some nutrients, but if somebody gives you a 50-pound bag of carrots, you got to do something with them. You're not going to throw them away. They're perfectly good carrots, so you can them. Yes, they may lose some nutrients, but they still taste fine. They're still good to use. I'm not getting rid of food just because it might be 12 to 15 years old. As long as it's still good and seals are not compromised or anything like that. If it's been stored properly, and I know mine have, then we're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here. And yes, this is a nice short video for you today. It's only 22 minutes. So I have some more things coming up. I'm actually probably going to put out some videos on something a little different within the next few days. And we'll see if anybody's interested in those. But I will be coming back with some more canning stuff. And what I'm going to try and do is see if I've got something that I can can that's water bath canning, so you can see how I do it without the big canner, and just see what the process is. It might end up being like a two or three part thing, because with my Chromebook, I haven't found an editor that I can figure out yet. This is the only thing I've got to film with. So it's kind of like film it and you're done. There's no editing to this right now. So I don't think I can splice things together to do one video to cover it. It may have to be in little parts. And I may film it all in one day or 2 days, depending, just so I can show you all of the important things you need to do. But they'll be out there. I'm going to try to figure out what I can that's a water bath, and we'll go with that first. And then we'll go into pressure canning. I do have potatoes that I got on sale that will need to be canned, and they will be pressure canned because they are no acid in them. So, thanks for coming by. Thanks for listening to me ramble a little bit, but not quite as much today. I hope this has been helpful. Number one, get your Ball Blue Book. You don't want one any older probably than the 1994 one that I have. I know that information is still proper and good. Newer ones may say something slightly different or have different recipes, but the basics should be still in it, and they're fairly inexpensive to pick up. So if you find one, at a thrift store or whatever, pick it up, but look at the date in it. If it's an older one from, say, the 50s or before, or even into the 60s or early 70s, I'd probably pass on that as far as having correct information for these days. We have better ways to do things. When I was a kid in the 60s, my mom, my grandmother canned green beans in water bath for hours. None of us got sick eating them, but it's not the proper way to do it now. It's not the safest way. You can get problems and not know it because botulism, you can't smell it, you can't see it, you can't taste it. We want to be safe. Nobody wants to get sick. So, let's do this safely. See what kind of books you can find out there, and I will put links down below in the description box for the books that I've talked about that are available now. And look through some of your older cookbooks if you have some, because there may be some interesting recipes for things that you might want to can. Soups and stews are always good. Most people make a lot of those in the wintertime. And if you've got extras, even if it's just one jar, if you got something else you can put in the canner with it to fill it up, you've saved, unless it's something you can freeze, and that's fine. But you've saved at least, one jar of soup from being thrown out because everybody was tired of eating it. That's what I've done. I'm one person. A lot of times I'll can up leftovers like that. So, thanks again for coming, and everyone have a great day, and hopefully you have some decent weather. We have sunshine today, even though we have snow out there, and it's cold. It's very cold. I guess that's it. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.